My name is Raphael James. I work with the Center for Research, Information and Media Development in Lagos. I'm from Abia State. I married a beautiful princess from Ogun State, and we are blessed with 3 wonderful children here in Lagos. I'm a graduate of the Ondo State University, where I studied psychology, but I'm actually a journalist because I started my career work with the media, Newswatch, the Newswatch of old. I moved from Newswatch. I worked in the presidency in Abuja. Then that was under General Sani Abacha's regime. I came back to Lagos. I worked with the Nigerian Philippines Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Then I moved over to SLOC Group of Company, which is owned by Dr. Joseph Carlo. And from there, he contested for an election, became a governor, and we left for Government House, where I went to serve as a special assistant on the media. And it was after then I came back to Lagos to set up CRIMMD, which I run today.
Interesting.
Thank you.
What informed your interest in the collection of archival materials and artifacts?
Well, I should say it has always been a hobby. This is like me turning my hobby into a profession, because I remember far back when I was in primary school, I think primary 4 in 1974, that was about the same time I started collecting coins as a hobby, started collecting stamps. I was also collecting buttons of dresses, and I was collecting marbles. Those were the 4 things I started collecting as a young person, and till date. The only thing I'm not collecting now are the buttons, but I still collect coins, stamps, and marbles, and my collections are awesome.
What's the attraction for buttons?
For buttons, I don't know, but well, as a young man, you notice different clothes will have different kinds of buttons. So I wanted to have all those kind of buttons in my collection. And let me tell you this funny story. I'll use the word notorious. I was so notorious in my collection of buttons that if I passed through, if my mates should wash their uniform and they spread it, and I just walk past where they spread the uniform, one button will just get missing. So it became so bad that even when kids lose their button in school, they'll go home and tell their parents that, "Mommy, Raphael has cut our button," even when it's not me. But so those are the things those interests is what, when I grew up and I started admiring my collection, I felt, why don't I have a place where I can actually allow people to have access to those collections? And behold, that was what led me to setting up the museum I run today.
You talked about having access to people coming to your place. What impact have you made to the youth in this community?
Okay, I'm going to answer that question in 2 ways now, because if you say coming to my place, besides running the museum, I also run a library. I run a free public library that I've been on now for close to 19 years. And over that 19 years, I've had over 30,000 youths who have passed through my library. Wow. Either they're using it to prepare for GCE, for WAEC, or for JAM. So they come, they make use of the place, and they go away. If you ask me what impact, I would want to say a positive impact. I might not be able to quantify it, but I'm going to give you an example, just going to give you one practical example. I think about 4 or 5 months ago, I wasn't feeling fine, so I went into a pharmacy. I wanted to buy a bottle of Lucozade. So I requested for the Lucozade, and I was about to pay, and the lady there told me, the cashier said, somebody have paid for you. So I looked around the whole place. I didn't see anybody that I knew that would have paid for me, but I saw a gentleman with a lady. They were both smiling. So he walked up to me and he said, "I paid for you, sir." I said, "Oh, thank you. So who are you?" He said, "You won't know me, sir. You used to have a library." That was what he said. I said, "Not used to. I still have a library." He said, "That was in Ejibo." I said, "Yes, I moved from Ejibo to Idemo." He said, "Wow, I didn't know." He said he used my library when he was preparing for his exam. Today, he's a qualified engineer. And that when he saw me, that he was excited. That was why he paid for the drink. Behold, to me, I was happy inside of me, not because he paid for me, but because at least there was an impact. There was something good that happened to him, which he felt he should do a payback. No matter how small it is, I did appreciate it.
So with what you've just said now, it means coming into your library or the museum or the premises, you don't charge a fee for it?
I don't charge fees for my library. I do charge for the museum.
Oh, okay.
Yes, my library has been free, but I started the museum in 2010. That was towards Nigerians' 100-year celebration. And when I started it, because it got so much cash at the beginning, I was thinking of how to recoup my money back. So I fixed a fee of 1,000 naira for everybody that walks through the door into the museum. Because you're not just coming to see things, you're coming for me to take you through Nigerian history, because I have to take you from, I always start from 1884, the Berlin West African Conference period, and I tell you Nigerian history up to the present day, where we have our dear President Muhammad Buhari in power.
The Bureau came to know about you, and we're wondering, when we had a discussion about the Ejigbo plane crash, we want you to tell us extensively what happened during the crash.
Extensively. I am beginning to wonder. I wasn't there. I was not in the plane. No. But really, I picked some interest in the story of the plane crash. You know, when the plane crash happened, and the subsequent stories that came after it, was that the then military president of Nigeria masterminded the killing of the soldiers that were in the plane. And I, for one, I think I was doing my youth service, or I just finished my youth service then, just about that period.
What year was that?
That was 92. Okay. That was 1992. So me, for one, I was wondering why would he do it? How did he do it? And the why and how is what gingered me much more later in life to start digging deep to find out what happened in the plane crash. And this is what I always tell people. Madam, can I ask you a question? I'm going to ask you a question, but you know, like the Nigerian system, I want to ask you another question too. Have you entered a Molwe bus before?
Yes.
You entered a Molwe. You know, Fela had a song where he sang about Molwe. He said 99
sitting.
No, 99 standing and how many sitting. Mm-hmm. That was the case of what happened in the plane. Mm-hmm. The plane, I think that was on September 26, 1992. Yeah, September 26, 1992. The plane had a seating capacity of 110 passengers without luggage. What it means is that if you have 110 passengers complete, no luggage for the plane, because it's a cargo plane, though of course the Air Force personnel were using it to move around. But this plane on that particular day, Fateful Day, was carrying 157 passengers with luggage. It was like a Molwe bus, overfilled Molwe bus.
Can we know what the name of that plane?
Hercules 130 plane. It's a military plane. It's an Air Force plane. Of course, it is one of the most rugged planes in the world. One of the most rugged planes in the world. But you see, you don't also overpush it, overstress it. 110 to 157 with luggage. These soldiers have their bags. You know, they were carrying their luggage. Now, let me make some little explanation here based on your question, because you said you want extensive thing. The plane was supposed to, the soldiers were supposed, I think they were moving from Lagos to Kaduna, if I'm not very wrong now. Yeah, somewhere, one of the others, either Kaduna or Kano, I can't quite remember now. So they all assembled at the airport waiting for the plane. The plane had left Lagos for Port Harcourt. When it got to Port Harcourt, it developed a technical problem. And they said the pilot that flew that plane to Port Harcourt spent about 2 hours trying to put it in order. Eventually, when he put it to order, he now had to fly again from Port Harcourt. Instead of coming to Lagos to move those soldiers who were waiting, he flew down from Port Harcourt to Abuja. If my memory sounds me well, I think it moved the corpse of an Air Force personnel and the family member down to Abuja. Then from Abuja, it now came into Lagos. Now, there's an official report that the pilot that flew that plane back to Lagos actually told the next pilot that this plane has technical problem. And this is what I experienced when I flew the plane. But, of course, I'm not blaming the soldiers that died because they are dead. But you know, they have this spirit, they call it among themselves. They want to go in unity. They want to go together. So they all insisted they were going to go together. They wanted to fly together. Report also have it that some of the soldiers who could not wait for the plane to come back and move them. Now, I'm trying to make this emphasis based on the logic that the president had a hand in it. Some of the soldiers who could not wait, they joined HACO Airline to fly. Because they said HACO and probably Dan or so had told them that if you can pay half of the flight ticket, we will carry you, because, I mean, they were military personnel. But others said, no, we want to wait and enter this one, in quotes, free flight. So eventually the flight came. Now, there's a particular guy I interviewed. He's still very much alive, squadron leader Michael Adefemi. Michael Adefemi, interestingly, is the only one now who escaped that plane crash. While he was waiting for the plane to arrive, he realized he couldn't wait again and he needed to reach his mother. So they said he gave his bag, his luggage to his friend, his colleague, and he said, let me rush down to Ikeja and give my brother money to give my mom, 20 naira. Because I interviewed him. Either 20 naira? Is it 20 naira or 200 naira? 20 naira. So he got to Ikeja. According to me, he said he was looking at that. Since he was already at Ikeja, why not just get to Kwebe roundabout, or so where the mother was, and just give the money directly to the mom. So he went to give the mother the money. And by the time he was going back, because the taxi that took him there was the same taxi that was taking him back, he said he saw the plane when the plane flew past. So he was like, oh God, can you move a little bit faster? That's my plane. Well, fortunately for him, let me not use the word unfortunate now. Fortunately for him, by the time he got to the airport, the plane has landed, the soldiers have joined the plane, and they took off. As they were taking off, he was driving in. He said to me, he said, I was angry. And I was blaming myself. Why did I even leave this place to go and give my mother money? When, look, I just missed my flight. Then he got there. His second worry now became his luggage, because he gave it to his friend. So he assumed probably the friend would have traveled with the luggage. But when he got there, one of the airport authority officials said, Oga, is this your bag? A friend, one of the soldiers dropped. He said, yes. So he collected it. He was still holding his bag in his hand when they announced that the plane was missing on the radar. He said he developed that fear. Could something have gone wrong? And the next few minutes, the second announcement came that the plane crash landed. He said the moment he heard that, he sat down on the floor. Now, one question I asked him is this. When I interviewed him on the phone, I've not met him personally, though we've actually agreed to meet one-on-one very soon. I asked him, I said, when you heard that the plane crashed, did you also have that belief, like most Nigerians came to be saying, that the president had a hand in the killing? He said it sounded like rubbish to him. And I'm going to discuss that now. He said why he didn't believe it, because that plane was not just carrying Nigerian soldiers. There were soldiers from some West African countries and East African countries and some Europeans that were in the plane. So even if the president was going to kill, must he kill every other person and people from other countries because he wanted to kill his own soldiers? Now that is by the way. Now back to my own point. I told you earlier the plane had a sitting capacity of 110 and was carrying 157, which means it was actually overloaded. Mm-hmm. That plane crash landed in less than 2 minutes it took off. What it means is that it flew up, the pilot noticed there was a problem and reported immediately. There's a report on the black box. I don't know why Nigeria didn't bother to get a copy of it and read, probably assess what happened. It took off, and the pilot radioed the airport immediately that the engine of the plane, the supposed to be 3 engines, one was already bad, 2 was surviving. The pilot reported that the second engine had just crashed. As he was doing that, the third and surviving engine crashed. So immediately he sent an SOS that the 2 engines are gone, and that he was going to make an attempt to return back to the airport. If you just drive down the road less than 5 minutes from here, you will see the airport fence. The airport is actually quite close to us here. So when he made that report, according to the black box report, he said he sighted the lagoon, and knowing fully well that the plane just took off with full tank of fuel. He was looking at the risk of what is going to happen if he should go back to the airport to land, to crash on the land. So he decided to go for the lagoon. He said his calculation was that by 200 meters, he will be able to fly down and land with the tummy on the water. But unfortunately for him, he miscalculated, and at 100 meters, instead of landing on his tummy, he nosedived into the lagoon. This plane nosedived. People around Jakonda area, Ejibo, they all claimed they saw it. when it was going down. But even with that, there was no rescue team. No rescue team got there. Well, report had it that the rescue team, immediately helicopter was sent from the airport. They went and searched for the plane. But the helicopter flew, could not trace the plane. And I keep saying the helicopter did not trace the plane because it did not burst into flame. If that plane had busted into flame like they are claiming, the helicopter would have seen the fire burning. But because it nosedived inside water with raffia palms all around there, they couldn't trace it. Eventually, it took the authorities 72 hours. That was more than 2 days for them to now locate the plane and start making an attempt to bring out the people that were stuck inside the plane. And when they eventually did, the first set of people, there's a guy I interviewed, unfortunately his name now, Nas Sabo. Nas Sabo used to be my colleague in Newswatch. Nas said he was among the few set of people who actually got there that morning because Newswatch, immediately happened, Newswatch sent a team of reporters and said, go and find out where they are and get report. They said when eventually Julius Berger came, because they had to bring in Julius Berger to come and break into the plane, when they did, they discovered that some of those soldiers have removed their clothes, probably heat, and some of them were holding papers and whatever they were using to fan themselves. So, which means that as of when the plane nosedived, they survived. It was not blasted. It did not crash. It only nosedived into the lagoon.
When you say reports,
Yeah.
report has it. Does it mean that there are documented records to prove your assertion?
Now, reports have it because a lot of media houses went to that scene to do interviews, and some of those reports are things I read before I started going my extra mile to find out my own findings. And in the course of doing that, like I said, I got access to the black box, the report of the black box. Yeah, I read through the original report of the black box. I've gone to the original scene of the plane crash. In fact, I remember when I did that, I made a post on social media that the authorities of the naval authorities, the federal government, the Lagos state government should go, the bodies were evacuated. After the plane crashed, the whole bodies were evacuated and they were moved to Abuja, where they were formerly buried in Abuja. But the point I am making is this: the exact spot where that crash happened should be preserved and, if possible, turned into a tourist site. But unfortunately, as I talk, the last time I went there, I noticed that they have built a church on the spot. I took photographs of it. In fact, I picked the bone because they were building houses around there. And when they were digging the foundation, I have a photograph. I picked a bone of a human being. And I wanted to move that bone to my museum. But you see, when I picked the bone and I saw the reaction of everybody around there looking at me, I said before they would think I want to go and use to do ritual. So I dropped their bone for them. But I took photograph with it, and I dropped it back. In not just a civilized society, in a society that is planning well for the younger generation that are coming back, that site should be preserved for the memory of those gallant soldiers that lost their life serving Nigeria.
When the interview happened with the former president,
Yes.
IBB,
Yeah.
what did he tell you?
Okay, I went to Mina, and I was doing a general interview with General Babangida because I was doing a special edition of my magazine for him. I published a magazine called The National Biographer, and he was to be featured in the cover. Before I started my interview with him, I told him that I wanted to have a one-on-one discussion with him, which is not part of my interview. So actually, sincerely, the things they told me was not part of my interview, because if you read the report I did in my interview, we didn't talk about the plane crash. But a one-on-one discussion with him, I had told him that I wanted to also discuss 7 of the allegations that people have leveled against him, the Mamman killings, the Delegate Wars issue, the Jibo plane crash, and the rest. And when we brought up the Jibo plane crash issue, I told him, I said, sir, most of the reports we've read in the paper said that you masterminded the killing of these soldiers. He looked at me and he asked me, he said, James, I said, Your Excellency, sir. He said, did you realize that in the history of Nigeria governance, that I had the power to remove my second in command in office and nobody queried me? He said, do you also realize that I also have the power, if I didn't like those young men, I could have moved all of them to ECOMOG and tell them, go and fight the war in Ekomog. I also have the power to dismiss all of them from the army. And nobody probably would have queried me. But the only thing I didn't have the power to do was I didn't have the power to kill them. So he said, I don't have a hand in it. And I couldn't have had a hand in the killing. And sincerely speaking, based on what I have seen, based on what I have read, if that plane had a sitting capacity of 110 and was carrying 157, the question I've asked people that have that belief that IBB had a hand in it is this. Did Babangida tell the soldiers, go and overload yourself in the plane? Was there any law that he made when the plane crashed? Did he make any law and said nobody should go and rescue them? These things were not real. But anyway, I read an interview, and he also said it to me. He said, when I was a military president, if a pregnant woman have miscarriage in his house, he said, Raphael, they will say Babangida is the one that caused the miscarriage. And it's still the same thing we experience today. Today, our president, practically everything that have gone wrong, even when we as citizens are doing something wrong, we blame it on the president. So if you ask me, I will tell you sincerely, I don't think he had a hand in it.
Although you've told us about the present state of the site, and you've also provided some solutions to the government concerning the sites, what can be done on those sites. And we believe with this interview, the government will look into it.
I just pray they do that.
Something appropriate will be done.
I pray they do that.
So I want to also ask you what you feel about the Lagos State Records and Archives Bureau.
Lasrab.
Yes.
I've been to Lasrab. I've seen what people are doing. Now let me ask you this question. I know I'm on camera. Do you want me to answer you sincerely, or you want me to answer you politically?
Sincerely.
Sincerely. Good. There's something about governance in Nigeria. There's something about the civil service way of life. It is one thing for you to have somebody at the helms of affair who wants to perform. It is another thing for the person who is at the helms of affair who wants to perform to also have the means to perform. I've been to Lasrab, like I said. Good enough, you took me around. I did a tour of Lasrab. I want to use this opportunity to make an appeal to the Lagos State government, because Lasrab is about Lagos. I mentioned earlier that I served in Government House Umuahia. When I served in Government House Umuahia, I told my governor then, Dr. Joseph Carlo, I said there is need for us to have a Government House library inside Government House. My colleague did not see a reason why we needed to do that. And because we were coming in when the military was leaving, 99, there were a whole lot of records that the military proposals and the rest that came in during the period of the military, they just piled them up somewhere. And I noticed that somebody was going to probably pack those things and burn them and throw it away and tell you that's the military regime. And I said, no, let us preserve these things. Somehow, we can always fall back on them to look at how the military ran the state and see how we can also improve on what they did. Now, having said that, I am also using this opportunity, like I said, because I've been to Lasrab. I will make an appeal to the Lagos State government. The governor is doing wonderfully well. The previous governors have also done wonderfully well. But I think more needed to be done. Lasrab needs to do more to preserve Lagos State history for the generations yet unborn.
Thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Can people come here, maybe schools, higher institutions, tourists from all over the world? Can they come here as a group for
excursions
and tours?
Yeah, they do come. They do come. The first year we started, that was in 2010. 2010, 2011 was massive. The roads were very terrible, but then we had schools coming in from as far as Badagry, Ikorodu schools, schools came from Ibadan, University of Ibadan, the history department came, Unilag. They do come around. We've also had individual, in fact, there's a particular case I'm going to make reference to. I can't remember the name of the man now. Flew in from Germany. He said he saw this place online. So he called my number, and he said he was calling from Germany. He said, I've been coming to Nigeria since 2010, and I never knew there was a photo museum But I cannot come now because I'm old. I said, oh, wow, how old are you, sir? He said, I'm 69. I'm going to be 70. So I made a joke. I said, well, leave it for your children or your grandchildren. Someday will visit Nigeria and they will come. And we laughed over it. Then 2 weeks later, I got a call with a Nigerian number, and it's the same man. So he said, I am in Lagos now. I'm at the airport. I'm coming to Idimu. Initially, I wanted to say this is 419. I mean, how can you call me from Germany and you're calling me from Lagos? So he said he was in Lagos. He was taking a cab. And sincerely, he took a cab. He came here. And when he came, he was screaming. He said, I've been going around. I never knew there's a particular museum for photographs. He blamed me. He said I wasn't giving enough publicity. I said, well, I've been trying the much I can to give it publicity. And interestingly, when this man came, he brought an old bottle of gin that was used in 1910 in exchange of 10 slaves. He said when he was coming, he thought that, what gift can he give me? So he brought, when he was telling me, he said, I know you don't have this. I said, interestingly, I have one. And yours is 1910, mine is 1900. So now, presently, that's actually the 2 bottles there. So I have 2 bottles of gin that were used in exchange of slaves during the slave trade era. So we do have people come in, and we are encouraging a lot of people to come, because the more you learn about your history, the more you have an idea of where you're going to. I always tell people that part of the biggest challenge we have as a nation today is because we have left our homes. We have gone out. But because we cannot remember where we're coming from, we might not be able to go home back. It's the case of somebody who leaves his house in the morning and suddenly runs mad halfway. Yeah, if the person leaves the house and he goes mad on the road, you know he will never go home back, because he cannot remember his history, and his history is his home. So that is the problem we're facing as a nation today. We are trying to push our history to the background. We are pretending those histories don't exist, and the more we run away from our history, the more we will never have an idea of where we're going to go to. And until the day Nigeria as a nation start appreciating who we are. Let me tell you a story briefly. I told you I'm from Abia State. I married from Ogun State. Good. When I met the woman I got married to, Folashade, I didn't know her from Adam. I just saw her on the road, and I fell in love with her. I thought I was going to get married to her. My son is here. She's actually listening. So she laughed over it, and she walked away. Eventually, we got married. Just about 7 years ago, I was doing a tour, and I traveled down to Enugu. I knew very well that when I met my grandmother-in-law happens to be an Igbo woman. I didn't know when I proposed to get married. And she told me she was from Enugu. So when I went to Enugu on a tour, out of curiosity, I called one of my in-laws, sister-in-laws, and I asked her, I said, sorry, where is your family house in Enugu? I would like to visit it. So she gave me the address. And the moment she sent the text, I was like, this is almost the same street that my auntie told me that my grandfather used to live in. So I went to the street. And I called my auntie again immediately I said, Auntie, sorry, you're no vex. Where was my grandfather living in Enugu? She mentioned the same street. I said, which number? She said 24. My sister-in-law said they were living at 26. 24, 26. So I got to the place. I went to number 26. I didn't want to go to number 24 because of some family issues that happened. My grandfather died. One of my uncles inherited the building, and since then there's been that, that normal village fight. So I didn't want to go to my own family house. So I went to my in-laws' own. I introduced myself to the young man I met there. I said, sorry, I am married to Folashade or Chidenro. Like, I said, I'm from Abia. He said, he has heard about me. So we went on talking. So when I came out, I said, do you know that this other building belongs to my grandfather? He said, it's a lie. I said, it's the truth. Now, that is point one. I came back to Lagos. The importance of research now I'm talking about. I have this 1933 newspaper here in my museum. I was going through the 1933 newspaper. Then I opened a page. And behold, I saw my grandfather-in-law's name, Oshidenro. I saw my grandfather's name, James Nkume. They were both friends in 1933. They belonged to the same club. So somehow, there have been this connection long even before we were born. But we don't know our history. It is only when we start documenting histories like this that we will know where we're coming from. Let me rest my case there.
I want to say a very big thank you to you.
Okay, ma'am.
Because we've learned a lot today. We've had a wonderful time with you. I want to say a very big thank you.
You're welcome.
For this expository that you have given to us concerning the Ejigbo plane crash in 1992 and other things incorporated into it. The Lagos State Records and Archives Bureau, in the person of our DG, the management and staff of the Bureau, say a very big thank you for receiving us. Thank you and God bless you.
You're most welcome.